So I'm using the line on this driveway and a square to help position the rails so that they're square.
And you're really hoping that line is true. This reaction video, sponsored by Nationwide Industries, but Nationwide Industries is more than just a sponsor. I legitimately enjoy doing business with them, both with the Cornerstone 2 hinges and the Trident latch that we use on our pool gates, or on their full line of chain link hardware. They're great people to work with. I appreciate them a lot. If you're looking for a supplier, you should check them out too. All right, guys, today's video is titled How to Build a Wood Fence Gate Step by Step. We've been doing a lot of reaction videos lately on gates simply because there are a ton of videos out there and I'm interested to watch them all. To watch the entire video without my commentary, check out the link in the description below.
I'm going to show you how to build a wood fence gate the right way so it's easy to build, it looks great.
We're building gates on a driveway again. Okay, let's see how it goes.
Now this project will cost about $140.
I'm not sure we're off to a great start here with the cost of $140.
The first step is to take 3 measurements. The first measurement is the distance between the posts at the narrowest point. So to find that, measure at the top, the bottom, and the middle.
Great point. Don't just take one measurement, take several, and take your narrowest measurement. Off to a good start here.
You're going to want to buy some materials. You're going to need a couple of 2x4s, preferably made from the same wood as your fence, which in this case is redwood, but you can use any 2x4, it really doesn't matter.
That's a massive reveal. Reveal just is the space from the bottom of the picket to the bottom of the bottom 2x4, from the top of the picket to the top of the top 2x4. It's a massive reveal. Fencing professionals vary on their opinion on this, right? We like a 6-inch reveal. Some guys like 4-inch, some guys like 8-inch. It's probably going to be less than what it's showing. This looks like probably, just judging by the nail holes here, at least a 12-inch reveal probably. Keep your 2x4s closer to the edge of the pickets. It's going to prevent warping, twisting, that sort of thing. It's going to keep your gate looking nicer longer.
You'll need some gate hinges. Now these hinges are the ones I recommend, but you can also use these hinges.
It depends on the situation. For this gate, I would agree. The ones that are installed on the gates, we would call those T hinges because they look like a sideways T, if that makes sense. The ones pictured overlaying the gate would be strap hinges. One guy's opinion, I think strap hinges are stronger than T hinges. You're dividing that weight out further down the fence than just putting it all on that front face of that wood post or the gate post. I don't know. One guy's opinion. What do you guys think? Would you prefer T hinges or strap hinges? Always willing to learn.
So we're going to build the gate either on the ground or on a workbench and then hang it on the fence post after it's built. So first, start by cutting the top and bottom rails for the gate. So these need to be 1 inch shorter than the smallest distance between the posts. So that first measurement you took earlier, you want to make the rails 1 inch shorter than that.
When we were building wood frames, so all of ours are steel framed on steel posts now, but we typically give it 1.5 inches to 2 inches to allow for the hardware on either side. So it's interesting to hear him say just 1 inch because that's obviously is going to give you a 1/2 inch on either side.
You want to make sure the rails are squared up as well. Okay, the easiest way to do this is to measure the diagonals and make sure that they're exactly the same. Now, if you have an edge or line to work off of, it certainly helps here. So I'm using the line on this driveway and a square to help position the rails so that they're square.
And you're really hoping that line is true.
Now the key to keeping your gate from sagging over time is to install this diagonal brace here, because that's going to give it the rigidity it needs to not just sag immediately. And it's also important to mention the direction of the brace.
This is a good point. A lot of people miss this, or they would install it as if they were bracing a chain link gate, which is backwards for this type of gate.
If you do it the other way, and let's say you build your gate like this, where these are your hinges over here, what happens is the gravitational force, okay? Let's say the gravity on the gate will just represent with these arrows. When you do it this way, that gravitational force is going to put this board in compression. So that force is going to be driven down. It's going to be pushing down onto this hinge.
All great points.
But if you do it this way, that same force that's out here on the end is going to translate through the fence boards then it's going to actually put this board, the diagonal brace, is then going to be in tension, which means it's being pulled instead of compressed or pushed.
Agreed. So wood gates, always compression. Chain link gates, typically tension.
The gate is almost ready to be hung, but we need to install one more 2x4, which will act as a support for the gate latch.
I was wondering how he's going to hang the latch. In that drawing, he didn't show that vertical upright between the top and the bottom rail and the leading edge. This makes more sense now.
So pick up the gate and position it by the post you will be mounting it to. If you've attached it to the workbench, now is the time to detach it. You may have to sit the gate on top of shims to make it easier to mount and position it in place. And if the gate is too tall, then you might have to dig a small trench underneath the gate so the top of the gate pickets line up with the fence pickets.
You definitely don't want to trench your pickets down into the dirt, and that's going to promote rot and just early decay by keeping them in constant ground contact, wicking the moisture, all that jolly goodness. You would definitely want them. Typically, we like them to be a minimum of an inch off the ground.
So make sure the gate doesn't rub on the post on the other side. You want to have a solid gap of about an inch between the rails of the gate and the other fence post. So if everything is good, attach the rest of the pickets to the gate.
If he only took an inch off, which is what he'd said in the beginning, and he's looking for an inch clearance, that means your 2x4s are essentially resting on your gate post, which as this fence ages is going to hold water. It's going to swell. Springtime with lots of rains, that sort of thing. It's going to make this gate hard to close. You'd want to leave yourself a little bit more wiggle room there on both sides of it. Like I said, we typically would allow for 2 inches, an inch on either side. That way, if anything swelled up, I don't know, if they expanded, you would have room there to where it would still close nicely.
You'll probably have to cut a fence picket long ways at the end to fill in the final gap.
I would differ on this. I would probably cut a little bit off 2 or 3 pickets, preferably place them furthest away from the handle. The problem is when you put a narrow picket, one, your eye's automatically going to find it. When you're walking up to this fence, you'll find the narrow picket. But 2, he's putting it right at the leading edge of that gate, right where the handle and striker is going to be. That guarantees your eye is going to be on that picket every time you go through the gate. Like I said, I'd take a little bit off several pickets, push them to the middle. Your eye probably wouldn't be as drawn to it.
If the gate rubs on the ground, and it often does, you'll need to cut some of the bottom of the gate off. To do that, mark a line across the bottom gate pickets about 1 inch above the ground while the gate is hanging on the fence. Then remove the gate and use a circular saw to cut along that line.
I don't know that I would take that gate off. I would just plan accordingly and make sure that gate had a minimum 1 inch gap off of it, off the ground. You could also take the high spots of the gate off. It always looks a little bit weird when the bottom of the gate's trimmed because it doesn't really match with anything. Also, I've seen guys trim them on the post or try to just trim out the high spots. It always ends up looking a little bit off.
Okay, so let's move on to mounting the latch.
Not my favorite latch, and here's the reason. Those springs always break. And not right away, but year 4, 5, or 6. And then it's a bear to try to find replacement springs for these. And usually you end up having to buy another latch and either swap it out, which is the preferred method, or you could rob the spring out of it. But I like to use gravity latches. When we're selling hardware kits for wood gates, I like to recommend them. There's a lot less to go wrong. There's obviously not the spring to break.
Most of the time, you'll need to create a small relief cut to make room for the mechanism. I'm using my circular saw to do this, but be very careful when using a circular saw like this. It's definitely safer.
Dremel or a jigsaw would be a better option here.
To remove the gate and make this cut on a bench, or to grab a reciprocating saw.
Ooh, I don't know. What do you guys think about this? I probably would have trimmed it a little bit further down. That way you don't have just this random cut mark in your board. But even still, I think a lot of the clients we work for wouldn't accept that quality.
And this is not required, but mounting a handle on either side of the gate will make it much easier to operate.
Handle definitely is a nice touch. Those latch kits typically don't come with an outside handle. I would pitch in for the extra handle outside.
Did you know that you can make $100 per hour or more doing simple projects like building gates, or even just doing things like hanging shelves for homeowners? Now, if you like working with your hands and you want to escape the drudgery of a desk job, then consider starting a handyman or other home service business. It's surprisingly easy to do. It's surprisingly profitable.
So it's a fair point. When I'm talking to guys that are just getting into the industry, I always recommend they get into repairs, what he's calling handyman work. So replacing gates like he's just done, replacing a post or two, replacing a section or two. It's work that full-blown fence companies typically can't or won't take on. So there's decent money in it. I've mentored a few here locally that start there, but they always end up wanting to grow into these larger jobs. And then they find out that the headaches only get larger as they go. I'm a big fan of specializing, if you're just starting out, specializing in repairs or small projects like this. Guys, let me know. What do you think about the gate? Let me know in the comments below. For now, I'm Joe Everest, the fence expert, reminding you that good fences make good neighbors. I'll see you next time.